Om Shri Sai Ram. Dear listeners, we welcome you to another episode of this Satsang series where we have been discussing about the experiences and journey of a great devotee of Swami, Mrs Ratanlal, whom we fondly refer to as Ratanlal Amma. But before that, we offer our most loving pranams at Bhagawan's lotus feet and express our gratitude to Swami for allowing us to place our minds at his lotus feet and filling this mind with thoughts of his. This human life, which is so precious, the most worthwhile thing to do with it is to spend it in thoughts, in memories, and being inspired by these inspirational figures such as the one we are going to discuss today. And we thank Swami for that. And it is the love and devotion that viewers and listeners like you have in your heart that is enabling us to bring these programs to you. So we also express our deep sense of gratitude to each one of you for giving us this opportunity. Whenever we talk about devotees, be it Swami's devotees who have lived in his presence or devotees of the yore, the great Meeras and Tyagarajas, or even the ones of the age of Prahalada and the others, I often think of it like a scene that all of us are familiar with. When you're going for an early morning walk, right? It's so dark before the dawn. Everything is covered in a blanket of darkness. It's all black, right? And even as the sun starts rising, especially the pleasure we have of walking into the countryside, living in Prashantinilayam, suddenly you find that the whole green fields is lit up with little gems, right? The dewdrops start shining like little gems even as the sun starts rising. And that scene is very beautiful in the sense that they were all there, but they were not seen till the point the sun rose.
Yes.
And similarly, I think it is so beautiful that there are so many devotees who might have silently lived lives for many, many years, who probably would have gone unnoticed because this sun rose in our lives. Swami entered our lives like this illumination. These people shone and we could recognize them. And in recognizing them, it gave us the opportunity to reflect upon what they have done with their lives. And it is so beautiful that there is no dearth of such inspiring people. And Swami has given us this beautiful opportunity to dwell into the life of so beautifully named Mrs Ratanlal, as we discussed last time too. She is one of those gems who has shined, and she is shining because Swami has arrived in her life. And we covered 2 parts. We are here to continue the 3rd part of this conversation.
Yes, absolutely, Prem. Very rightly, there are so many such beautiful, amazing, exemplary souls in this abode of Prashantinilayam, and wherever people have created Prashantinilayam in their lives, no matter they are in India or abroad. And for one story of Ratanlal Amma that we are reading, I think there are hundreds and thousands of stories that we do not know.
Absolutely.
And in fact, if you just go to South Prashanti, East Prashanti, knock every door, I think you will find such stories. You have someone like Mr. Pantji, 100 years. I think the world has no idea of this such a lovable personality who has been taking care of guests. And like that, you take any institution of Prashantinilayam, there are nurses who are working right from the inception of the hospital. There are workers who are there whose fathers also work for Swami, their children also are working for Swami, like generations. And nobody knows about them. And it is really, really such a thrilling moment, enlivening moment to read about their lives, because Swami very clearly says that you don't need to read any scripture. In fact, Swami very clearly says to Ranima and so many other, even to the warden, Swami had told that to walk on the spiritual path, to get tips on how to walk on the spiritual path, you don't have to read different philosophies, just read the lives of the saints. And for us, Such people, Ratanlal Amma, Kasturi sir, Ramabrahmam sir, I think they are the people who are the modern saints who lived when Bhagawan came to be with us. And definitely there's nothing better that we can do to sanctify our lives than reflect on their stories. And as Prem said, we have finished 2 parts and we talked about how she first came to Bhagawan, her first darshan, how the light entered into her, and how Bhagawan entered dramatically into the life of Mr. Ratanlal. And then we talked about how Swami was giving them the signs, right? Even before he actually entered, he was preparing their minds. And Mrs. Ratanlal talks about how even as she was worshipping sage Bhrugu in her shrine, she used to see the sage covered in yellow hue, how people, when they came to her home, they would see Bhagawan sitting on the chair and she didn't know Bhagawan was there. And they used to say that, oh no, there is Swami sitting. And today you will hear she talking also about how Swami was appearing in her earrings, in her diamond earrings. So there were so many such signs that Bhagawan continued to give her and prepare the soul for that first amazing encounter, isn't it?
Right. And then we spoke about the 3 darshans they had on subsequent days. And one of them was when they had been to this devotee's house, Mr. Atal. I think Swami was visiting their house. And she spoke about these 3 interesting events, 3 miracles that Swami performed. Sometimes some of these things, we tend to belittle them by calling them miracles because they're once in a lifetime occurrence.
Yes.
She spoke of how 3 of those people, one is her own husband who was suffering from severe sinusitis.
Yes.
Then there was her niece who was having a problem with her eyes from a young age, almost blind. And there was the son of the lady who was working at her boutique, Mr. Kamal Sahani's younger brother, right? Or elder brother.
Arun Sahani.
I don't know whether the elder, the younger one. He had a hole in the heart.
Yes.
And she says about how Swami materialized Vibhuti for each one of them and curing each one of those maladies one after the other with the same Vibhuti, a multi-speciality miracle, if you would like to call that so. So that was one of the first instances where she had the opportunity to observe Swami from close. And it was not that Swami performed these to convince her, because as you said, that first darshan, when the beautiful experience of having a disc of light coming towards her, I think in that she was convinced and she knew that there was something more. If for her it was a miracle like that, Mr. Ratanlal, the very peace that he felt in Swami's presence was enough to convince him. So this was not to convince them, but this was a gift of grace because they probably didn't come seeking anything. And that was one of the experiences that she spoke about, we covered last time.
Yes, and of course we then went on to their first visit to Parthi and the challenging moments they had adjusting to Parthi. Of course, even though there were 9 people in a room, and Swami says, Ratanlal Amma, and you please, you also adjust in that room. So like there are 13 people. So she came to Prashanthi Nilayam at a time when there was 1 or 2 rooms, and there were 13 people living in a room, and there is absolutely no facilities, no electricity, no water, no milk, and she had to have her car driver go to Bangalore every 2-3 days to bring the basic stuff. And live under trees. So she had to ensure that her husband is comfortable. And we spoke about how they came from a background where in 1960s itself they had like 10 servants, 4 cars and air-conditioned house. But all of this did not matter to her at all. Still, when she recollects those days, she would always say, "Nahi, it was heaven, it was heaven, it was heaven." And so we were talking about that phase of our life, and in spite of the circumstances being so challenging, still she did something very interesting, very moving. Let's listen to her.
There used to be one lady sitting outside at 4 o'clock with a little basket of akkora. And akkora. In 1 anna, I used to get this much akkora. 1 anna, that was the thing. And from the very beginning, what happened, Because we used to worship the Devi those 9-10 days. So I thought, here is the Devi, because I used to see Swami not clearly. I would never say that I saw Swami as Shiva or as Shakti, but Swami used to, give glimpses. So what I did was I had little silver plate because I used to offer that in the house now. So I had taken, so I would make 4 puris, little potatoes, whatever we used to offer. I used to put that and go and leave Swami's dining room, in the mandir. Swami's room is this side, and Swami used to come, walk all that veranda and come to that little room to have his tiffin, to have his lunch, to have his afternoon and dinner. So I used to go and leave this silver thali down below without showing myself. Now Saraswati, who used to be, how they were, in the village, they are not very attentive. So sometimes she's looking, sometimes she's not looking. I used to leave that thali. I would enter the door and on the right side, hiding myself, I would put the thali. And after Swami has gone, I would go back and the thali is downstairs. Now Swami is coming and asking Parvatama, Venkama, that there is a thali down below. You get that thali upstairs. Saraswati never asked me who you are, all that. Though Swami, Kasturi had told Swami that we both have come. Achha.
So that, dear listeners, was the episode which probably started off a very, very long journey. As we've been mentioning many times, even before in our introduction, Mrs Ratanlal had the opportunity to cook and serve Swami for many, many years. So here was she narrating and describing how she first cooked for Swami.
Yes.
When you listen to a story of, somebody introduces a devotee and says that this devotee has been cooking for Swami for so many years, or this person takes care of Swami's personal needs, all of us might feel jealous of that and say that, oh, how I wish, I could have an opportunity like that. But if you look at every one of these individuals, their story would have started in a place like this, where an opportunity was grabbed, right?
So true.
Where to serve Swami, that opportunity is everywhere. In fact, when we were talking to one of the other great devotees, we were talking about the great, inspiring, saint-like devotees of Swami. One thing that we can never complain of is lack of inspiration, because Swami has given us that in plenty. Mr. Vadigaonkar.
Yes.
When he went to Swami and he said, Swami, there seems to be some little work which we can do in the ashram, some plumbing and sanitary work. Is it okay if we take up that? He said in an interview. And Swami made an expression as though he had taken offense. So he was little taken aback. Did I ask something or say something which is inappropriate? And Swami looked at him and Swami said, isn't this your home? Why do you have to ask me? You should have the sense of belonging and responsibility. You can take it up. So typically like that, here is Swami and she's cooking food. Why not offer it to Swami?
But I think Ratanlal Amma was someone she would have felt, it is my Swami and I have to serve, I have to take care.
Absolutely. And that opportunity, I think it only requires devotion and love to discover that here is Swami and I can do this, and Swami will accept it and Swami will be pleased by it. So every grand opportunity starts with a small initiative such as this. Absolutely.
And when you see the way she went about it also, she just wants to leave the plate and quietly go back. She does not even want to anybody to know about it, or she's not looking for any sort of reward out of it. Just that satisfaction, just like a mother. Has my son eaten? Can I serve my son? That's all she wanted. And when you think about it, Swami has his own sweet ways of acknowledging it. So even though she does not tell anyone, Swami sends word through Parvatama, Venkamma. See,
there's a plate down there.
there is a plate down there. You bring it, and imagine her thrill when you open the dabbas and then you see that some of it has been partaken, some of it has been accepted. And in fact, whenever we read the life of Mrs. Ratanlal, as I was saying before, you cannot but think about the lives of other such great souls like Professor Kasturi and Ram Brahmam Garu, Raman Rao Garu. In fact, it reminds me of an episode from Professor Kasturi's life. Professor Kasturi came, to Bhagawan 1948, and his entry also was very dramatic. And, just Swami stunned Professor Kasturi by saying that, when you retire, you're going to write my biography. It is the first encounter. And he says, I don't even know him. And he's saying, you're supposed to write my biography. And so from then on, little things start happening. And Professor Kasturi so beautifully says that, that experience was too good to be true, too sweet to swallow, too sudden to sink in, and too light to keep it in my mind. And I think that's how it was when you read about Mrs. Ratanlal. So one day, Swami asks Professor Kasturi, which tastes better? Hot milk made lukewarm by being poured from one cup to the other a number of times, or hot milk cooled to the temperature of the room, temperature of the tongue, by the cup being kept for some time in a basin of cold water. How do you make hot milk lukewarm? Which is the best procedure which will ensure that the taste of the milk does not reduce? And Professor Kasturi absolutely was stunned and he didn't know what to answer. And Swami said, okay, no problem. When you go back, you ask your mother. And also tell her what she's doing is not right.
Not the best practice.
It's not the best practice. So then he went back and he asked his mother. This one mother revealed to him that, every day she would offer hot milk to Bhagawan. And to ensure that this milk comes to room temperature quickly, she would keep it in a basin of cold water. And so Swami was just saying that, what your mother is doing out of so much love for me in her room, she's making that offering for me. Know that I am there, I am receiving it. If you are doing anything from that space, Professor Kasturi's mother was also someone like a mother figure for Bhagawan. That kind of endearing relationship Bhagawan had. So there were all these little beautiful moments these devotees, these saintly devotees had when they had that pure love for Bhagawan, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think in the presence of Swami, you find some of these people raising to potentials that probably otherwise we wouldn't have.
That's the magic of the avatar.
Yes. The other day I was listening to a narration of an old student who was a student in the primary school. And he said, we were so taken in by the stories of these great saints that we would hear. As little children, for us, you hear the stories of Mother Shabari, for example.
Yeah.
The same Rama is here.
Correct.
And he said, he accepted the way she offered that fruit to Rama. I mean, Rama accepted the way she offered it to him. And he said, this is our same Swami.
Yes.
Why are we not offering like this to Swami? And he thought to himself, Swami accepts cloves, right? That's the only thing which probably Swami accepts from all of us. And he said, Swami likes cloves to be spicy. So I will taste each clove. I mean, I'll give ones which I feel Swami will like.
Wow.
And imagine this little boy taking a bowl of cloves that he has tasted himself, each one.
Amazing.
And Swami finds him in the crowd and comes and takes cloves from him.
Wow.
Right? I mean, when I heard that, could we have even imagined being able to do something like that in the absence of Swami in our lives? I think that is what Swami does to our lives, that he allows us to raise to potentials we probably didn't know that we have. And all of us, I think there is no point in saying that, I could not do this for Swami, I could not offer this to Swami, I could not physically serve Swami in this manner. That opportunity is still there. right? Even in 1940s, as you beautifully narrated, Swami was acknowledging that the milk that you keep on the altar at home is being consumed by me, right? And many, many devotees have had the opportunity. So I think Swami has entered our lives, and we have the responsibility also to raise ourselves to such heights.
And during that first visit to Puttaparthi, the most coveted thing that to happen to anyone's life when anyone came to Bhagawan in those days was that personal moment with Swami, that interview room session with Swami, and Mr. and Mrs. Ratanlal had that opportunity. And how did that go? We heard about the first darshan, we heard about the first interaction. How was the first interview of Mr. and Mrs. Ratanlal with Bhagawan? Let's hear.
Now, last day, Swami called both of us for interview. And there used to be no proper interview, small room. So Swami had steps to go up. Swami being small and little, though my husband and myself, we are same height, Swamis. So Swami would climb the 2 steps and would make us stand down below and draw the curtain so that other people, if they are there, they don't listen what is happening. He would talk to my husband. To me, he would never talk. Before leaving, he would look at me and start singing Mirabai's bhajan. And then I would start tears going down. Are Swami, what a beautiful, singer for hours and hours, non-stop. There was nothing he could, whether it is Tyagraj or whether it is Meera or anybody or Surdas or, there was no Bhakta, Purandar Das and all that Swami, didn't sing those songs. And that used to be our interview. And then Swami said to both of us that come for my birthday.
To me, this is the most moving aspect of the relationship that Mrs. Ratanlal had with Bhagawan. When 2 souls pining for each other across lifetimes come face to face, I think there is nothing that you can express. Words are absolutely such pure means of expressing what is happening in the soul. And I think that is the kind of experience Mrs. Ratanlal had with Bhagawan. Swami would see Mrs. Ratanlal and Swami cannot speak. Swami would only sing. And sing what? Sing Meera bhajans. I can only think that perhaps the moment Swami saw Ratanlal Amma, Swami got reminded of Meera. And perhaps he found a soul, a heart that was as dedicated, as pure, as committed, and as adorable. And that is the reason why every time Ratanlal Amma says in those years, they got an interview with Bhagawan, Swami would speak to Mr. Ratanlal, but with Mrs. Ratanlal, it was only Bhagawan singing, not speaking. Bhagawan expressing his joy of having found Mrs. Ratanlal. Isn't that absolutely incredible, Prem?
Absolutely, and very, very unique episode, right?
Absolutely very unique. I never heard
come across anything like this. But then if you dwell a little deep into this whole interaction, Swami singing bhajans, Swami would often say that some of these bhajans or some of these songs written by saints, they were not ordinary, they were not poetry, they were not simply music or melody. They were very, very deep. In fact, some of Tyagaraja Kritis, which Swami would explain, they are so very deep, right? One of the most famous Kritis, Banturi Tikolu, he says, Swami explains, he's saying that let me be a gatekeeper at my heart who does not allow the 6 enemies to enter.
Wow.
Right? So it seems like a Bantu Riti Kolu means I want to just be your servant. But then the essence of that is so deep that it does not give away the fact that God is the indweller. Similarly, Swami would speak about many great saints, Tukharam's poetry, which seems very simple, but it has the highest Advaitic philosophy in them. Speaking about some of these things, Swami once was narrating about Meera Bhajans. We would like to play for you, dear viewers, a small clip from a discourse. This is from Swami's 71st birthday celebrations, where Swami speaks about some of these compositions. He says that they're not simple. They're not ordinary songs. They had some of the deep spiritual insights embedded in them. And we listen to this clip, and even as you listen to that clip, also imagine that Swami was singing these songs to this devotee who was sitting in front of him. So a small clip from the discourse Swami delivered during the 71st birthday celebrations.
అలాంటి దీన్ని మనం ఈనాడు అర్థం చేసుకోవటం లేదు.
That we are not understanding today.
పవిత్రమైనటువంటి ఋషులందరూ కూడాను ఈ కవిత్వములు అనేటువంటిది కేవలం అంతర్భావం పురస్కరించుకునియే వారు లిఖిస్తూ వచ్చారు.
The poetry and the composition of the ancient times came out of the heart.
కానీ ఈనాడు భౌతికమైనటువంటి యొక్క దీనిని మనం ఆధారం చేసుకుంటున్నాం.
Today we go by the ways of the world.
అదే విధంగానే రాధ కూడాను,
Same thing about Radha.
అదే విధంగానే మీరా కూడాను,
So also Meera.
వారు చెప్పినటువంటి ప్రతి పదములు కూడా అంతరార్థాలు ఉంటున్నాయి.
Every word they uttered has got an inner significance.
చల్లో రే మన్ గంగా జమునా తీర్ చల్లో రే మన్.
O mind, travel towards the Ganga and
గంగా
Jamuna.
జమున ఈడా పింగళ నాడుల యొక్క భూమధ్య స్థానమే యమునా తీరము, అదే ప్రయాగ.
Ganga Jamuna stands for the two basic
అక్కడ
rivers.
ఉంటున్నాడు నీ కృష్ణుడు.
There is present Krishna.
హే మనసా,
O mind.
నీవు ఏదో ఒక ప్రయాగకు పోవాలని ఏదో రైల్వే టికెట్ కు నీవు బుక్ చేసుకోవద్దు.
O mind, don't make any railway advance
ఎక్కడా నీవు
reservation to go to
పోనక్కర్లేదు.
Prayaga. You don't need to go anywhere.
గంగా జమునా తీర్ చల్లో రే మన్.
They just get in through the both of the nostrils.
గంగా జమున నిర్మల పానీ.
Ganga Jamuna are
అవి
pure
రెండు
water.
నిర్మలమైనటువంటివి.
They are very pure.
అనగా ఏమిటి?
What?
స్వార్థరహితమైనటువంటివి.
Purity means selfless.
గొప్పగా ప్రవహిస్తున్నాయి గంగా యమునలు.
They flow very well.
కానీ తమ నీటిని తాము త్రాగటం లేదు.
But those rivers
ఆ
don't
నీటిని
drink their
ప్రజలకే
water.
అందిస్తున్నాయి.
They just share the water.
అనుగ్రహమైన
with the
సాగరంనే చేరిపోతున్నాయి.
society. And they join with everywhere.
కనుకనే ఇవి నిర్మలత్వాన్ని బోధించేటువంటిదే ఈ ఈడా పింగళ నాడులు.
Therefore, Ida Pingala speak the lesson
అక్కడ
of truth.
ఉన్నాడు భగవంతుడు.
There is present God.
మోరమకుట పీతాంబర శోభే కుండల రజత శరీర్ చల్లో రే మన్ చల్లో రే మన్. ఇది ఎంత అంతర్భావంతో ఎంత ఆనందాన్ని చేకూరుస్తుంది.
This composition has got lot of inner significance and makes you
కనుకనే
blissful.
భగవంతుడు గానప్రియుడు అని వర్ణిస్తూ వచ్చాడు నారద తుంబురాజులు.
So Narada Tumbara described God who loves
వాడు
music.
ఎంత గానం చేస్తున్నప్పటికీ భగవంతుడు అక్కడే తన్మయత్తుడై ఉండేవాడు.
God really gets himself
ఆ
lost
గానము
in
చేత
music.
భగవంతుని ధ్యానం చేసినప్పుడే భగవంతుడు నీలో లీనమైపోతాడు.
By singing God's name, you can merge in
ఈ
God.
కారణం చేతనే సామూహిక భజన అని పెడుతూ వచ్చారు.
For this reason, the chorus collective singing is prescribed.
కానీ ఈ గానములో ఉండినటువంటి యొక్క ఆకర్షణ మరొక దీంట్లో మనకు కనిపించదు.
No other spiritual path has got as much
అయ్యో
of
మాకు గానం
attraction as this
తెలియదే అని
singing.
చాలా మంది నిరుత్సాహపడనక్కర్లేదు.
Many people need not be
నీ
disappointed.
హృదయంలోనే నీవు గానం చేయి. 10 మంది వినే కోసమని శృతి లయ రాగ తాళాలు నీవు చూసుకోవద్దు.
Sing within yourself. Don't bother about others.
Isn't that a beautiful narration, Bishu? And Swami goes on to speak about bhajans itself. We have heard Swami narrate some of these things, how when you speak to Swami, God may or may not respond.
Yes.
Rama Nannu Kapadu.
Yes,
In fact,
yes.
Swami goes on to sing that song in the same discourse. And he says, but when you sing it, and the way Swami speaks, he says, oh, that song just pulls the heart. Literally, Swami is saying that if you do that, I'm pulled, right? Because that is the connection in these songs. Swami, when speaking about the Gopikas, Swami would say that Krishna would stand in the banks of Yamuna and play the flute. And by the time that melody of the flute, first of all, I mean, all of us have had the opportunity to walk past a flowing river. You can almost not hear what the person next to you is speaking. right? Because the gurgling of the water drowns all the noises. Krishna is standing by the river and he's playing the flute, and it reaches the homes of the gopikas, which are far away into the the village. Swami says, how does that happen? Because it was not an ordinary melody that was being sung. It was the essence of all Vedanta. Swami says that in one of those Vedasara Mantatisi, Nadarupa Muganamarchi. Swami says in that, right? So he says it is the essence of Vedanta. It's the call of the Paramatma to the Jivatma, and the Gopikas, because they were pure, they responded to that call. And here is Swami, in front of this devotee, singing these songs, right? The conversation that was happening was not even between that Mrs Ratanlal and Swami. The conversation was between the divine being and that Jivatma.
The Jivatma and the Paramatma. I think I think it's a joy for Paramatma that after so many births he has found finally the soul that he had been preparing for so long. And for the Jivatma, nothing else now has any significance in life except the person in front. And I think this is a moment which I feel you cannot express in words. Just close your eyes and just sit back and just think that you are with Swami in the interview room, and you have got this chance after praying and pining for years, and you sit at his feet and you look at Bhagawan. You don't know what to speak. Swami looks at you. He also doesn't know what to speak, and he begins to sing. I think that is what is the unspeakable relationship that was there between Bhagawan and Mrs Ratanlal. And of course, Swami tells them to come back for the birthday festival. They had come for Dasara, and 1965, Swami says, you come back. So that's how their trips to Parthi started. And so we'll listen to Ratanlal Amma talk about she being part of the birthday celebrations, 40th birthday celebrations, 1965.
It is 1965 ना, तो 65 में कौन सा birthday था?
40th.
So we came, and there was a little hall, and these, my God, the few people, they had no consideration. When we would enter, they would throw us out because we were not of. And so Ratanlal is Swami is taking him up to his room, and I'm sitting last, and there used to be the canteen. So, bhajan is going on, you are listening to the bhajan, and then Swami would come, do Shirdi Abhishek, and all that. So I would, while the bhajan is going on, I would jump, and there used to be a big itni basket, green chilies ki. Nobody would like to cut that because the hands burn. So मेरी duty यही है कि वो chilies काट के I used to give it for the canteen. और अगर if you saw the canteen, daylight you couldn't see anything. It is full of smoke, and there used to be 6 benches with kadapa, and वो पतला सा सांबर और कुछ खाना that used to be available. So I used to cut, and then I would, when Swami is coming, I would jump and sit last. Swami would come last row in every function. He used to come to the last row, talk to people, give them namaskar and all that. So I was very happy that I'm getting my namaskar from Swami during all the functions. What more do I want? There is nothing. Swami is not talking to me, and everybody knew Ratanlal by that time. Nobody knew who Mrs Ratanlal is, So that was then we discovered, where the Sai Towers is. There Mani used to have a little dhaba. And next to that, there were 4 dilapidated rooms. No proper doors, no proper windows. Even the rains are also. So I did little spade work. I went to that Mani, what is this? He says they are available, you can take that. 10 rupees for 4 rooms, 2 rupees 50 paisa, you know. So I used to reserve all those 4 rooms. In the meantime, I made out of wood a little sort of plank for my husband. Only you could put 1 plank there. So he used to sleep. Next room I could put and then we used to bring our cook. Because by that time, my husband had done that whoever he would meet and he had no place to eat, he would say, come and eat with us. So from 2 people it became 5 people, from 5 people it would become 10 people, sometimes 15 people, you know. So whole day long the kitchen is going on, you know, and I can't do because I have to have my darshans also. Then in birthday also, same thing happened. Swami gave interview and that was Then I didn't come, but my husband came. Then I used to send full staff and we had booked those rooms for the year. Imagine how much. Nothing, you know, piddly sum. Acha. So that is how 65 went.
So that was her birthday, 1965. As she says, what did she do? She was serving in the canteen. And what was she doing in the canteen? She was cutting chilies. So for her, serving Swami did not mean that, you know, if I get a chance, I will cook something and ensure that it reaches Swami's dining table. Any opportunity that Swami gives, that is a chance to serve Swami. Anything that I can do in Prashanti for the devotees, that is a chance to serve Swami. And she grabbed every opportunity, and that was probably a difficult thing to do. And imagine, we all know Ratanlal Amma, she comes from a very aristocratic family with all that, but she took up the most difficult thing to do, of cutting chilies. And as she says, she did not really expect anything from Bhagawan. You know, just that satisfaction that I'm doing something for Swami's birthday. And Swami used to come and give Padnamskaram. She says, you know, she never sat in the front or she never looked for anything from Bhagawan for having done that service. She would sit in the last row and Swami himself would come and give Padnamskaram. And she says, that was more than enough. She didn't ask for it, she was not waiting for it, she was not looking for it. She was so happy that she was being part of the birthday celebration by cutting chilies in the canteen. In fact, it reminds me of so many sevadals. Even during the COVID time, you know, even now, you have sevadals from the state of Odisha. You see them serving in the Western canteen, groups of ladies sitting together, cutting vegetables. You know, you see so many sevadals serving in various divisions of the ashram with that same fervor, that same love. And I think it is people like Mrs Ratanlal who showed us how to serve with that kind of selflessness. If you want to serve Swami, let it be a silent service. Silent service is Sai service. No show service is Sai service. Selfless service is Sai service. And Sai on his own will find his inscrutable ways of filling you with joy, as long as you do everything, keeping him in your heart. And I think that's something very, very beautiful that we read about Mrs. Ratanlal's life, isn't it?
Right. In that narration, she said, in the end, Swami would come and just give that Padnamaskar, and that was more than enough. That's really the story of so many Sevadal who came. I was once listening to a conversation that Swami was having in Kodaikanal with the boys. And then Swami was talking about the devotion of some of these Sevadal. He said they can afford only 1 trip a year, right? And Swami would say that those 15 days or 1 week, they probably would never get a darshan.
Correct.
Because they will be posted somewhere and they'll have to take care of some gate.
There are people on the Hanuman
statue. Imagine, this is Swami acknowledging their love and devotion. Swami said, they don't even get to see me, right? What do you come here to Parthi for? They don't even get to see me. And all the while, Swami said, they're in their mind, they're thinking, Swami will give us that one Padnamaskar.
Yes.
Before we leave, Swami will give us that one Padnamaskar. Such is the devotion of all these people. And today, as you were saying, that in the absence of even that, they still find the inspiration and love and devotion to come and do that.
Yes.
at a time when people are scared to step out of their homes.
Yes.
Right? These people, I was so surprised even during the initial months of the COVID lockdowns and all that. We found devotees coming all the way from the northeast of India. It takes
and they were here
days.
for like 2-3 months,
Right,
because they couldn't go back.
And coming all the way, saying that when work from home has become a norm, their work from home was redefined. Literally, I met one young Sevadal boy. I just happened to talk with him and I asked him, where are you from? What do you do? He said, I'm an IT professional at Infosys. Right? And I said, that's surprising. Have you taken leave? He said, I've taken a few days off, but few days I've taken work from home. So he said, I do work in the morning and night I do Sevadal duty. I said, where else do you need to look for to
work
see
from your
Swami's?
true home?
Right. Where else do you need to look for? Swami is giving us inspiration through such selfless people. And that is what, even in the narration that we heard. And of course, she goes on to speak about them finding their way around Puttaparthi a little bit. Now she said that I found that there's a room I could rent.
4 dilapidated rooms.
Right, and put together. And
one plank where Mr. Ratanlal can sleep.
And after that, she says, once the kitchen is set up, now suddenly guests start coming. And she says, that became the norm. And being people who probably in that first trip, she said, how difficult it was to get anything in Parthi. So Mr. Ratanlal would find whoever he finds and he says that they are really not sure where they're going to eat, he would bring them along. And she says now the kitchen became a 24-hour kitchen. One, it just reminds of the other great devotee of Swami, Subhamma.
Yes.
Where, after Swami declared and came back to Puttaparthi, before the Pata Mandir was even built, Swami was living in Karnam Subhamma's house. And talking about those days, Swami would make a very beautiful statement, very subtly. Swami said, the grinding of that stone never stopped.
Yes.
All those days, because that huge grinding equipment, whatever you call that,
grinding stone to do chutneys.
It's very difficult. It's really difficult. And they used to make chutney and dosa and idli batter and all that. Swami said, throughout the day you would hear the grinding of that stone, because she was feeding everyone who had come for Swami's darshan. Right? If as devotees we are asking, how do we win Swami's heart? The manual is here.
Yes.
Right? I'm also reminded of what happened in Hadshi when Swami had gone to Hadshi.
Yes.
I think they'd taken Swami to the balcony of the mandir, and they were showing Swami around, and they were saying that this is where the road is and all that. And suddenly in the distance, Swami saw that some enclosure had been built. And Swami said, what is happening there? And they said, Swami, prasadam is being served. And Swami, the all-knowing one, pretended as though he was surprised. And he said, what prasadam? So he said, Swami, we are serving food for all the devotees who have come. And Swami was so happy to hear that. Right? These devotees who were hosting Swami had also thought about the devotees who would come and ensured that each one of them was fed Swami's prasadam. This is how you win Swami's heart. Right? It is very, very simple in the sense that it is open to us, but it is up to each one of us to grab that opportunity. So that was about her first birthday celebrations. Now we'll go on to another visit that they made, as she goes on to say that they made multiple visits after that, but she goes on to speak about one particular visit, which was an impromptu visit they planned, and it turned out to be one remarkable one. So we'll listen to her narration and then we'll reflect upon what she shares.
66, it was July. And he was coming very often. If I had time, I would come. If I didn't have time, we finished Tuesday bhajan. And the next day was the 28th of July. And while having lunch, I told my husband, I said, how wonderful it would be if we are there tomorrow. So he said, Bombay. He said, very simple. Let's pack up and let's go by car. I said, all right. I went to the kitchen I told the man, there is no need for you to come. There was Atal's daughter who wanted to come with us. So 3 of us, I packed up everything, dal, chawal, everything in a little basket. उसको टाई किया और अपने कपड़े निकाले, छोटा सा बैग लिया, उसमें 2 दिन के कपड़े, you know, सब करके we left at 3:30 Bombay. When we left 3:30 Bombay, it started pouring. अरे पूना पहुंचने में हमको generally it used to take 3 hours. Took us 5 hours. So we had Turf Club के members तो है ही थे. So I said before we go to Turf Club, let's have some dinner. There were 4 chairs. Suddenly I had put my handbag on the chair. So I immediately removed the handbag and I put it on the ground. So they both started laughing. Your imagination. I said Swami is sitting. And they had ordered tandoori chicken and all that, both of them non-vegetarian. So मैं तो strict vegetarian. I had ordered little dahi, dal, because I was not sure whether in the other curries these people used to cheat. They used to put little meat shorbas in order to make thing interesting. तो मैंने बोला तुम क्या कर रहे दोनों? क्यों ये तंदूरी चिकन खा रहे हैं? And you will see that what Swami is going to tell you both. तेरा imagination है, ये है, वो है. मैंने कहा देख मुझे नजर नहीं आते, मगर मुझे पूरा भरोसा है कि Swami has come. अच्छा, Swami is present with us. वहाँ से दूसरे दिन हम चले. We had no idea कि पुट्टपर्ती है कहाँ. अच्छा रोड कौन सा लेना, पूछ के when we arrived in Penukunda, you know, the bridge was not working. So they said it will be ready tomorrow morning. So we had to go to Hindupur. It was 12:30 at night. And my husband has been driving for 16 hours, you know. तो हम जाके हिंदूपुर में मैंने I told my driver कि तो फ्रंट सीट निकाल, इसको लटा देते, हम तो बैठ जाते क्योंकि वो गवर्नमेंट गेस्ट हाउस में कमरा नहीं था. मैं और दिस गर्ल अटल्स डॉटर वी आर सिटिंग आउटसाइड ऑन द ग्राउंड और हम अब भजन गा रहे हैं. 2 बजे, 2:30 बजे, 3 बजे आई शुक माई हस्बैंड कि अभी उठो, बिकॉज 5:30 स्वामी यूज्ड टू गिव दर्शन in the morning. So we wanted to be in Puttaparthi by 5:30. So जब हम पहुंचे तो स्वामी was giving दर्शन. So किया, फिर बाहर गए, जाके अपना क्रियाकर्म किया. फिर कस्तूरी के पास आए तो कस्तूरी ने बोला कि मैं स्वामी को पूछता. Now this girl went up to Swami. Swami, it is Mrs Ratanlal's birthday. Now they had talked to Swami about my ring and about, much before 6th of June. And Swami confirmed that, hey, don't talk ring, stone. Yes, I'm giving, I'm appearing in that. So Swami had some or the other, all God's grace. This is all preordained.
What
Nothing.
ring? What, auntie? What?
I had a big stone, diamond, very big diamond, which I used to wear. And I had very big diamonds, which I used to wear in the ears. Swami is all the time in that.
Oh, you could see?
Everybody could see. And they had come to Swami and they told Swami that in Mrs Ratanlal's ring and tops, we see you. And Swami confirmed it. So she said, Swami, it is Mrs Ratanlal's birthday today. Swami said, go and tell her that I'll see them tomorrow morning. On the 29th July, he called us. Swami called that girl also. So you had tandoori, all that he described. Mrs Ratanlal told you, you said Mrs Ratanlal's imagination and all that, all that. Acha scold kiya. And he called these Nadswar people because Guru Purnima bhi thi na,
Correct.
And there was Mr. and Mrs. Maru, there was another couple. Why I'm giving you this story is it's worth listening. So Swami gave us interview and gave me, I was a very bad ulcer patient, which I never told anybody. Swami materialized and gave me Vishnu Saligram, and he said, do Abhishek and drink every morning.
That was the narration of that trip we were talking about, where I think it was her birthday or Mr. Ratanlal's birthday.
It was Mrs. Ratanlal's birthday.
Mrs. Ratanlal's birthday, sometime in July. And she said that for a moment she wondered it would be nice to be in Swami's presence. And what stops you, right? That's what Mr. Ratanlal says, and they make this trip. Very arduous one, right? We'll come to that a little later. But the other beautiful thing that came out in that narration of hers is something that should happen in every devotee's life.
Yes.
That is, Swami would describe it as a 4-step process, right? Salokyam, Samipyam, Sarupyam, and Sayujyam. I would often think of Salokyam as we go on with our lives, we carry on our lives in a manner without acknowledging the presence of God, right? Many of us are like that. I mean, yes, during festivals we pray, or morning when we wake up we pray, but still God is, one of the many showpieces in our life. But then when in a devotee's life, a time comes when Swami becomes an important aspect. I think that is what is Salokyam, right? Literally, your world has expanded to engulf
step into the kingdom
Swami, or you have stepped into the kingdom of God, either way you would like to see it. From that Salokyam, that Samipyam has to be found. It is 2 ways. One is you feel Swami's presence with you always, and you pine for Swami's nearness, right? Both of that is Samipyam. Yes. That you want to be near and dear to Swami, and you also don't forget that he is near and dear, right? Yes. As Mrs. Ratanlal was saying, that wherever she was going, that small incident about she ensuring that the handbag was kept, so that when there are many devotees who follow this, they would try to keep a seat next to them.
In fact,
free.
There are, as you mentioned, there are many devotees who follow this. I know of so many devotees, when they drive, they keep their the place next to them vacant. They consciously feel that Swami is there, and they have such experiences. Right. And I think there are so many people who have that experience. If you consciously feel that Swami is with me, walking with me, living with me, when I'm driving, he's with me, when I'm in my office, he's with me, I think Swami gives that experience. It's a question of how strongly, how intensely you cultivate that feeling of his presence.
And as she was narrating, once that feeling is there, it automatically starts regulating your actions and thoughts. Right? Because, all said and done, we might say that Swami is omnipresent and we acknowledge that Swami is everywhere, but we behave differently when we are in Swami's presence and otherwise, right? So this thought of Swami is next to me automatically starts regulating the way we lead our lives. And that is what she was saying, that, how can you eat this kind of food? Swami is watching, right? So that thought, I think that again is a very, very important thing. It is not enough to say that I am a Sai devotee. It is not enough to say I am part of the organization, I come and do bhajans.
Yes.
You will have to take Swami along with you, right? And that is one thing which Swami would constantly tell. I still remember one of the elders, when he got the first interview, he and his wife were called for Swami's interview. And apparently at that time there was a very beautiful picture of Swami in the interview room. Swami was looking very charming, a little younger than, or maybe at that time, because this happened in the early 70s. So this devotee was going on staring at that photo, and he was so drawn. Imagine Swami sitting there, and he was so drawn by that picture. And Swami noticed that, and Swami said, "What?" And he said, "Swami, if you don't mind, can I take this picture?" He said, "It's so beautiful, Swami. Can I take this picture?" And Swami said, "Why the picture? Take me." Right? Yes. And he said, that is what I want. I want that each one of you who come to Puttaparthi, to Prashanthi Nilayam, takes me along with you into your life, right? So I think that is a very important step that every devotee needs to take. And she was referring to that.
I think what is amazing is she just come into Swami's fold. It happens, we have seen in so many devotees' lives that, it takes so many years for you to make that transition, that I love Swami, but loving Swami means living his message in my life. in a way that I feel him every moment. It takes so many years for people to come there. But for Mrs. Ratanlal, it just happened. She just was drawn to Swami, and next moment she's thinking, how will I live his teachings in my life? And I think that is the difference also between liking Swami and loving Swami, isn't it?
Right.
Loving Swami is actually, can you make that love translate into acts in your life such that he loves you. He loves your every act and you become a beacon of the love that he is. And I think that was something really, really amazing, very, very inspirational, and a guidepost for all of us walking on the path.
And actually, even as you were saying that, it connects to the other probably weird aspect that we just played out. These devotees who are coming to Puttaparthi and they are stopping and having non-vegetarian food.
Yeah.
Swami didn't reprimand them.
Yes.
Right? When they reached Swami's presence, Swami didn't reprimand them, because this was something that Swami would always tell us, right? Swami would say that I want everything to come from the source and nothing from force.
Force, yes.
Right? And just what you were saying, the difference between liking Swami and loving Swami. A devotee should look for ways by which this love can be embodied in their life.
Yes.
Right? You love someone. It happens with even a regular relationship between a son and a mother, between a child and a father. Somehow you try to do things which they like, right?
Yes.
Whether or not that is the best thing you want to do. Sometimes many, many years after your parent passes away, you stop and think that, no, my father would like it this way, my mother would like this way, and you would act in a certain manner. Because love can be given form in life only through aligning your likes and dislikes to the beloved.
Absolutely.
And when you say that I love Swami, it should come for our own understanding that now I love Swami, what can I do? Yes. And I think Swami only gives us ways to express that, because I often would say that if there is somebody who, whatever they eat, when you say Brahmarpanam, Swami says the Vaishvanaro Bhutva, right? That's the thing we chant, the Vaishvanara, the flame which is inside, which is God, Swami says accepts. Whether you're eating sattvic food or rajasic food, it's the same God who is digesting it. But when Swami says that I prefer these kind of dietary practices, it gives us the opportunity to align our lives to that, to express our love, right? And as we can see, Swami would never say that, don't come into my presence, you've eaten like this. Swami would only slightly hint that this is what I like, it is up to you.
But I will still love you.
Right.
God's love never stops. But if you love me, you can think for yourself. And I think if you love someone, doesn't that happen, in our regular relationship? We think we want to do things that are 10 times things which will make our beloved happy.
Right.
I think, and that's how you see so many people doing things they would have never imagined they would have done before. You will see foreigners wearing saris. You will find people of people in very high positions coming and doing just simple seva. Why? Because they love. That love can do amazing transformations in your life, and I think only when that love translates into seeing how I can translate the love of the beloved in my life, only then that love gets meaning, isn't it?
Right. And the other thing about this particular episode she narrated, think of the things that she's narrated so far, the first 3 darshans, right? 3 darshans on subsequent days, one after the other, and each one they get closer and closer to Swami. And Swami has come all the way to Mumbai, where they live, right? It's like God coming to your doorstep, and you have access to him, you have means of going and reaching out to him. Suddenly everything seems to be falling in place. And here is another case where there is obstacle at every step, right? To reach the nearest city, from Mumbai to Pune, they take longer. From there to Penukonda, they take so much longer. Then they trying to reach the nearest town, there is no place to stay. There are obstacles at every stage. But even then, the drive within has not come down.
Correct.
So I feel, Swami's blessings can come to us in 2 ways. One is Swami might clear all the obstacles on our way. Then you know that Swami's silent hand is at work. I think the other way is there might be any number of obstacles on the way, but there is no deterrent inside.
Yes.
You don't find your enthusiasm or hope dipping. You are focused.
Yes.
I think that is also Swami's grace.
Yes.
I was once talking to a couple who were living in 2011 in Australia when they got the news that Swami had decided to conclude the avatar. And they were sitting in Australia, I mean, it's quite a distance away. When they get the news, both husband and wife said, we have to go and see Swami one last time. Right? Somehow we should go and have Swami's darshan. They just get the news, they decide this, they open up their laptop, they say, let's book the first ticket out of here to Malaysia or Singapore. We'll go there and then we'll see. Then some flight will be available, we'll take it and go. Right? Then they booked a ticket. Literally, they booked the ticket, closed their laptop, picked up a bag and walked out of their houses. Right? They go straight to the airport, get into the flight, land in Malaysia, go to the counter. The next flight out to India had 2 seats available.
Wow.
They got into that, they came to Bangalore, and in no time they were there. And everybody else was surprised. How did you pull this off? Right? Because we know that a trip to India from a country like that calls for weeks of planning.
Yes.
And that couple was saying, we don't know how it happened. In the heart, there was this desire that we have to see Swami one last time. And he seemed to be, pulling the strings in miraculous ways. That is also Swami's grace.
In fact, very recently I spoke to a professor from Netherlands. Generally, it takes 3 to 6 months to get the papers all cleared for him to travel out to come to India.
Okay.
And he was saying that, I don't know what happened. He just got this desire that he should come to Parthi, and things just moved so quick. Things that would take 6 months happened in like 6 days. So I think these are experiences
Right.
I think so many people have
Absolutely.
had. Yeah.
And I feel that is also Swami's grace. And the other thing is a case like she narrated. Everything around you is falling apart.
Yes.
Everything, there is an obstacle at every step of your journey. But there is something burning within you
Yes.
which makes you overlook everything. It doesn't let your enthusiasm
Yes.
be smothered.
Yes.
I think that is also Swami's grace. And I think that also we have experienced so many times in our life.
Yes.
When we look back and say that, oh, I should have crushed so many times in this.
Yes.
But Swami ensured that, when we pray to Lord Ganesha, when you say, oh, Lord, remove obstacles, I think it is both ways. Either you remove the obstacles or you give me the strength to overcome the obstacles. I think grace from Swami comes in both ways.
Yes. And if
She says
that love for Bhagawan is there, I think that strength
That
will
is the
come.
most important thing.
Most important.
Right? When you have love, you find the walls breaking.
Yes.
When you have love, even if the wall is there, you'll find it breaking. You will find yourself breaking it.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, I think. And other thing that you hear here, Mr. Ratanlal talking also about Swami confirming that indeed it was he who was giving darshan, giving visions in the diamond earrings. That's what Mr. Atul's niece asked Swami. Swami, we used to see you in the ring, and Swami says, yes, I was there. So, we were talking about this earlier signs that Swami had given, and now Swami is sort of confirming. And slowly their relationship with Bhagawan is coming to a stage where from there on, we said the light is in me. When she came to Bhagawan, the light literally entered into her. So that was sort of the start of the journey. And then now you are in the light. When you are in the light, a lot of purification happens. Lot of journey has to be walked where this light will ensure that the light in you shines, and that is a process. And I think that's what happened in the subsequent years until she reached the point where I and the light are one. But I think we will come to that in the future episodes. The other interesting thing also that she narrates here is how Swami cured her of her ulcer. She had this chronic problem of ulcer. If you remember the first encounter in the night, she actually left that gathering. If you listen to our first episode on
the neighbor calls her to have some milk.
Because she had that ulcer and she cannot handle being on empty stomach for long. And here, she didn't ask for it. She didn't ask Swami to cure her ulcer. This is Swami's calling her. Probably it was her birthday gift. It was her birthday. Swami creates a shaligram and Swami says, you do abhishekam every day and you have. And from then on, she didn't have that ulcer problem. Again, she didn't ask for it. why I'm stressing this is all we need to do is have that deep love for Bhagavan. Obstacles, even if they are there, they will get cleared. Be it physical, metaphysical, spiritual, emotional, any kind of obstacle. All that we need is that love should be that driving force in our life, and that love will create the pathways, light the pathways, and make us one with the light one day. And we'll come to that, more of this series in the future episodes of this Satsang series. Thank you so much for being with us. It's really, really a joy to share these beautiful snippets from the life of Mrs. Ratanlal, and we pray to Swami that he guides us and he fills us with that kind of an inspiration so that we can also walk on that path and make him proud. Thank you. Sai Ram.